To the controversy surrounding Tesla's Autopilot system. Through Tesla's innovation, the company came up with an advanced assisted driving program and later an autopilot feature that drives your car for you. This autonomous feature was promoted by Elon Musk to be a safer way to drive. But the new FX New York Times documentary, Elon Musk's Crash Course, looks at the dangers of this kind of automation. The film draws on firsthand accounts from people who were part of creating the technology, those who used it, and details the lives lost. Joining us now is producer and director of the film, Emma Schwartz, and New York Times reporter, Cade Metz. Thank you both for joining us. Emma, we'll start with you. What piqued your interest in creating this particular documentary, and what was the process like?
Yeah, so, Elon Musk is, one of the most famous, wealthiest, and prominent business entrepreneurs of our time. And we're trying to look and understand what story could we tell about him. And one of the things that really caught my attention was there were a lot of these questions going on about the autopilot technology and the efforts to create a self-driving car. Here we have this visionary technology leader, and the government was starting to look into potential safety concerns, and we wanted to dig in further.
Cade, we all in the media have been following, Elon Musk and Tesla through the journey of the company, but you had a focus specifically on this. Was there anything that surprised you throughout your reporting on Tesla's Autopilot?
I think what's most surprising is how misunderstood the technology is. For years, people like Musk, people across the industry, but Musk in particular, painted things like Autopilot as something that would be able to drive your car anywhere by 2018, by 2019, by 2020. None of that happened, obviously, but it was shocking, and to a degree, it's still shocking. How many people still believe that this is a technology that's on the verge of doing what he says it will? The reality is that it won't.
Cade, you've reported on Musk's grand vision for Tesla for years. So give us a sense of Elon Musk, the person. We know he's really eccentric. We hear his speeches. But talk about his ambition and how it affected the mission to create this technology.
His mission, and his attitude is extreme, right? He has a vision for not only cars, but rockets, artificial intelligence, interfaces for the human brain and machines. These are all things that are in the distant future, but he talks about them as if they're in the present. And he talks about them with such conviction, you can't help but believe what he's saying. This is a common attitude, a common method, if subconscious in Silicon Valley, but he takes it to extremes. And regardless of what is reported about the realities of his technology, about the realities of his management style, about the realities of his companies, he manages to instill this confidence in at least a certain part of the population, a very, very intense, very, very committed group of people who follow his every word and repeat his every word.
Yeah, and at the very least, you believe he believes what he's telling you. He's good in convincing people that way. He really seems to believe it. This is a good point in the interview to point out that Tesla has repeatedly stood by its autopilot system and has claimed its safety reports show that it is less prone to accidents than normal driving. So, Emma, you follow people who have used Tesla's autopilot and detail the deaths of those who died using it. And the documentary mentions, with regard to Tesla specifically, since Autopilot came out a few years ago, several people have died and dozens of crashes have happened using Tesla's self-driving system. So I would imagine speaking to those people for a documentary like this is so important to bring a face to what can happen.
Yeah, we wanted to talk to people who use the technology, who love the technology, who've had questions about the technology, and, also been impacted by the technology. So, part of what we get into the film is looking at, the first known autopilot-related fatality in the United States, which killed a man named Joshua Brown. And, his accident was really the first one that sparked a lot of interest from the government and investigators to understand, the limits of the technology and to evaluate, what more could be done to make these sorts of systems safer. You mentioned earlier this question of, the data that Tesla puts out. And, we looked at that as well, and we discussed that in the documentary because, Elon has cited it many times, saying Autopilot, I think most recently he's claimed that it's 10 times safer than, a human driver. The challenge with that data is that it's very limited and it's not been vetted by outside sources. And so, from an outside perspective, it's hard to know because we don't have enough data what's really safe. Could it be that some parts of Autopilot make things safer? That's possible. But what we have seen is there's certainly been collateral damage where there may be unintended consequences. And there have been recommendations from the government on how to potentially limit those consequences.
All right, well, he's a fascinating guy, and this certainly is a fascinating look into him and this technology. Emma, Cade, thank you both for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Their new FX New York Times documentary, Elon Musk's Crash Course, airs tonight on Hulu at 10 p.m. Pacific. We should mention that ABC News did reach out to Tesla for comment regarding this documentary, but we have not received a response. However, we are learning tonight that a judge has ruled that a Tesla driver will have to stand trial for a crash that led to the death of 2 people while the car was in autopilot. The driver was charged with vehicular manslaughter for this 2019 accident that happened out in L.A. Prosecutors say auto assist features in the car were active and that the driver's hands were on the wheel, but that he never touched the brakes around the time of the crash and was speeding and ignoring signs to slow down. And the driver has pleaded not guilty.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.